This week's The Next interview with our host, Dolan White. You'll hear Humphrey Christian explain exactly why trust, self-discovery, and human connection may become more valuable than ever in an AI-driven world, and how leaders can build stronger teams without losing their humanity. If you're making decisions about AI in your organization, this episode is for you.
Welcome to the Next Interview Show podcast. I am Dolan White. As the announcer mentioned when we came through the front door, that Liam guy tells you guys who I am when we come in. And today I'm always privileged with the interviews and the folks that I get to spend some time with. But this is a special interview. For those of you who have been listening, I'm on the countdown to episode 100. What started out as a random hobby has turned into 100 episodes, and there's another 40 or so book beyond that. So I think I'll be around for a little while. I'm not sure. But on that note today, the guest that's joining me is Humphrey Christian. And I've asked Humphrey to come back as what just came to my mind, was a repeat offender, but as a repeat guest on the podcast. And I was looking this morning, and you were guest on episode 14.
Wow.
On November 25th, 2024. And here we are today. We're a long way from episode 24.
Yeah.
And coming back for more conversation. We had a really rich conversation when we spoke last time.
We did.
So I want to start as I start every podcast, even though we've had some off-air stuff coming into it. Just gratitude. The very first thing is for you taking time to come, being willing to come back and have the conversation, and two, the gratitude for the insights that I know you're going to share with the leaders and guests that are listening today. So, from a virtual hug, thank you for being back here, and thank you for being willing to share your expertise and your knowledge and your time and talk to these folks.
Well, thank you for that. No, the pleasure is all mine. And the gratitude is all mine for having me on the guest.
So it's a long time since 2024 to today, right? Here we are. When we think about that gap, it feels like it was just yesterday we were doing there. Just to just as a refresher, just take a moment to talk a little bit about your background. Things have changed a little bit since we were together then, and kind of the destination, which happens. It's that rule. There is no straight line.
Right.
So maybe let's do that a little bit, and then we'll get into a conversation for a while and revisit some of the things we talked about. But we've got a lot of new stuff to go through today, too.
Right. Well, first of all, as an introduction to the listeners, I am Humphrey Christian. I actually, right now, my role, I work as a VP of go-to-market technologies for an exciting company, but before that, I started my career working as a consultant back in Anderson Consulting, worked my way through the rich Silicon Valley area back when the internet was just exploding. Through that experience, I started working in a company called Bay Dynamics, where I met a number of entrepreneurship folks, a couple of guys that were dying to change the world, Ryan Stolte and Ferris Rafai. And that journey took me all the way to that company to get purchased by Broadcom. I went through a number of roles in that, from VP of product management, VP of engineering. Then in the Broadcom experience, I moved more into what I call the field CTO role. So I actually got to experience to do sales, more direct sales, working with partners, interacting with that. Then I decided to leave that because I had a calling to build a company, to do more of a spiritual marketplace. Name is Naveem. And the original goal at the time was to kind of bring in practitioners and people that were seekers or looking for spiritual guidance and connect them. Then, as you mentioned in November, you invited me to your podcast. And in that podcast, you mentioned that, hey, you have a podcast in you. You guys could do that. Fast forward to 2025, and my partner and I decided to start, Gene and I decided to start a podcast. So we started a podcast from Naveen. The idea was to use the podcast as sort of a tool to bring people, kind of connect the site with the podcast. And a year and a half later, what has turned out to be more is that we're spending a lot more time with the podcast. The podcast actually is the piece that it seems to be resonating with the people, because it helps the themes that we're talking and the format that we finally landed on seems to be resonating. And now we're sort of full circle turning that into feeding the site, right? So we're using that to help people get to know themselves, do more of the self-discovery. So we move a little bit from the purely spiritual connection to more of a self-discovery, helping people find their areas in there. So it's been a journey. But like always, learning and growing.
Yeah, I love that. And it's first of all, congratulations on the podcast. So
Thank you.
Listen, I'm a fan of the podcast, and kind of like I think I have 6 listeners on this podcast, and I know
we have like 6. We have like 5, so we're good. We're like 5.
Yeah, we don't know who they are, but they're out there anyway. But yeah, congratulations on the podcast. I think and it's interesting, your journey. We'll kind of get into it, because one of the things that we didn't talk about on the previous episode was kind of that spiritual nature, because you come from a very highly technical background. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I'll say this into the podcast, even though we're recording this and it's going to be public. You have a brilliant mind. I've worked with you on that on the technology side, and
thank you.
You have the ability. You have the ability to link that very highly technical conversation into language that people can go, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
Which not everybody can do, by the way, as we know. So I'm really, just for the listeners, I'll include a couple of highlights in this podcast as maybe a bonus reel. But when we talked together before, we talked about really kind of 5 things. We talked about trust. The only time I'm going to read is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Trust.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that recognition matters more than money. Leaders should give away credit. Fear is part of growth, and the cycle of despair.
Yes.
Were our topics from last time.
Right.
And as you were kind of talking about your career path, it's an interesting thing, and I hadn't thought really about this before, to go from that technical world, right? That world where you're leading, and you still are doing this, you're leading cutting edge, kind of bleeding edge technology and changes, right? And to starting a website that's spiritually based. And I think there's a kind of a moment that leaders listening to the podcast goes, so wait a minute, this is, you're an entrepreneur, you've been a consultant, you've done all these things, but there's a spiritual connection.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious. It's a long preamble to a question, but what I'm kind of curious about is that connection that attracted you to, I want to go do this from a spiritual perspective and launch this website, because that's some people call that woo-woo stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's a high value in the content, particularly that Naveen puts out and what you talk about inside of your podcast. So what's that connection that took you there?
So it's a great question, but it's something that it is interesting enough. I was talking to my niece, who's actually visiting from Puerto Rico here, and she asked me the same question earlier.
Really?
She's like, how do you, she was like, how do you land it? And part of it is, so my background, right? So besides my educational background, I actually grew up in a very spiritual family. Right. My family, I wouldn't describe them as religious, but I do describe them as very spiritual. Right. So, from an early age, I always had that sort of exposure to deep spirituality. But I went to sort of Catholic school as a young man. And so I was was sort of privy to the Catholic sort of dogmatic religion.
Sure.
And as you describe it, and I appreciate that I have a very inquisitive mind. My mind just always was asking questions, right? Well, why are things this way? Certain things don't make sense to me. What's going on?
Right.
And in my college years, I actually spent a lot of time sort of exploring other religions and sort of trying to learn what they are. Because I was literally, there was something in me that was asking, there's got to be, what is this? What does it all mean? What actually is spirituality? What is the actual meaning of spirituality? What does it mean? And I landed at the time on, there's the same message across the board. They're all saying it differently, but there's a message, right? But I was a young man, so I couldn't get deep into the message. That's where I stopped. But it was something that was always in me, sort of digging, I would call it. So I would call myself a seeker. I was always kind of questioning, well, there's got to be something more.
Right.
And then I went through in that process of when our company, Dynamics, got purchased by Broadcom. Part of that, and the personal side, actually went through a divorce in that process. And that process sort of forced me into, didn't force me, but I went through a sort of self-discovery phase.
Right.
And through that, it took me into yoga, interesting enough. And that yoga, so that sort of getting in there, I sort of had an aha moment of, okay, this is what it all means. And then sort of, I went in chasing for the connecting threads of what actually spirituality mean, right? The union and the connection that we all have. And I'm going to call it divine, universal energy. But the idea of somehow through the world we live in, we've forgotten how great being a human is and how amazing we are, and our capacity for creation and our capacity for connection, more importantly, right? So when I had that, I said, look, this is the world we live in is technical. The social media with all the things we need to share. We need to share this. We need to give a platform for people to find themselves into that. So that was the sort of the insight for me. And then my partners separately also had, so Jean, who's my partner, also had an experience similar to that. As she was traveling, right? And that so we came together and said, look, we need to share this. We need to give people a platform, because I felt at the time, and I still feel it, that the time we live in now, it's a time where that piece of helping people self-discover and understand, again, how great it is to be a human, that connection that we have and that ability to create, it's so important, right? Especially the connection piece. So we did it, and we started there. We found, interesting enough, we found a community. We found people that are actually like-minded and think that way. Through that experience, I learned a lot, interesting enough, that has helped me in the business side, which is, branding and marketing and talking to people, but the importance of being clear and simple with messaging, right? So for instance, you mentioned spirituality. That word has a lot of meanings for different people, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the way, our culture, different cultures receive it, or how it's been painted out and so forth. But again, when you distill it to the sense, it all means just self-discovery, find yourself, and understand that we're all connected in this universe. So that's the beauty of, I find that very beautiful. And I think, again, especially with AI and everything that's happening, people are leaning towards technology. So a way for technology to bring those people together and to give that message on a platform for that. So I find it, I'm not, I feel like we have more to do, but I feel a sense of relief. It's almost like something was nagging me down. I don't know if it's something that I needed to do. It's something like needs to happen. So it was good. I'm glad I did it.
That's such a great story, because I think there's, as I mentioned, kind of there's this kind of woo-woo idea around what we call spirituality, and I think because there's so many terms, there's manifestation, and
exactly, I'm
going to think it and it's going to happen, and it actually doesn't work that way. However, there's more to it than that.
Exactly.
which I really love the kind of the depth of it, because before we kind of going to move off to some of the things we were talking about earlier. So as you were talking about that, one of the things that crossed my mind that would be interesting for us to just spend a moment or two on is, I've always considered, I consider you a great leader. When you're working with teams, you have the tenets and the way you treat people and the way you approach business itself separates you from some of the other experiences you and I have actually seen together side by side.
Yeah.
But I'm really kind of curious though, Humphrey, because I think there are the things you do as a leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk, in my book, I talk about, trust and autonomy and blah, blah,
right.
All this stuff, right? Not to call my book, blah, 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 but I talk about stuff in there. But one of the things that I think that there is because we are working with other people, there is that connection, that spiritual component. So as you were kind of going through that curve, right, in where and gone through divorce, having been there many, many, many years ago, myself, when you go through those kinds of experiences and then you begin to self-discover what spirituality means to you as an individual. And there are as many definitions of spirituality as there are stars. What changed for you with that understanding and how you approach working with and leading other people?
Ooh. Wow. You know what? It actually changed the way I understand the people that I work with. It actually changed the way I understand. Meaning, so if I were to put myself in my younger years, I used to get very frustrated with people that, if they weren't either at my energy level or my understanding, or they couldn't pick up things quick, in the technical space in particular, right? So back when we were doing consulting, back when we met, if people couldn't pick it up fast enough, I had no patience, right? For people, it was kind of, oh my God, to do that.
Right.
Whereas now I tend to look, I now can look at someone and see their strengths, so I try to look for what is the right role for someone, right? So, so like they may come in your organization for a particular role. So instead of just getting frustrated and say, okay, this person's just not going to work out, I try to actually get to know and understand the person and their strengths and weaknesses, and then see if there's actually a fit, not necessarily in the role that we brought him in, but maybe somewhere else, and try to fit him. And it's more, who the person is, right? And again, one thing that hasn't changed is that I always believe there's things that people have innate on themselves that, and if they have them, I can teach them other things. But I do have more patience now, I think, on the work to understand people. And that has changed because you never know where somebody is or what experiences they're going through. Right. And I'm like, you may meet someone and they may not be the best version of themselves at work, but they may be they may be going through a divorce, or they may be going through a health situation. Right. And you never know. Right. So it's giving me that understanding now that you have to take the whole context to understand. At the end of the day, business, work is a work. You need to deliver, right? And outcomes need to be achieved. But it's giving me a better understanding and a better way to manage people. Actually, interesting enough, in this new job, we had a situation where we had a resource that was just simply in the wrong role. And the people were, almost pushing him out the door. And I was like, just give me some time to understand. Just give me some time to figure this out. And we just had to once I get to understand him, shifting him, and it's made a 180-degree change. It's like a whole different person. His output is much better. He's in a better place. He's happier. So, whereas I don't think in the past, had I not gone through that experience, I don't think I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. I think that's so important because I think we have a tendency to hire for a job, right?
Yeah.
There's a title and a job description,
Right.
and we kind of beat that person with a hammer until they fit in that round hole, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't quite get there. So there is definitely an art nuance, and I think that's important. And there is that I think the spiritual connection with them and what you said is really important. Leaders go back a few seconds and listen to what Humphrey was talking about, but to take the time to get to know them.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you used a word. What's not changed is I write stuff down as you're talking, right? If you see me writing, I'm coming back to it. But you use the word innate.
Yeah.
And so I want to add a little clarity around what do you mean by innate?
Right. So I mean, we are all gifted with some skills and some abilities, right? So we all, and since I have kids and I've talked to a lot of parents, now I can say with full certainty, we are all born with certain skills and abilities that we expand them and we learn more. You know, knowledge can be acquired, but we are born a particular way. So in a particular job, and I use consultants example, if some people are more patient, some people are able to sort of people manage, right, and understand and have empathy with somebody and understand and be flexible, right? Like an example. Right. So certain people have those skills innately, like they just are born, they have it that way. So those are things that I look for instance, in the time of consulting, I would look for certain skill sets that either a person had them or didn't have them innately. And if they didn't, doesn't matter how much training you could give that person, they were never going to be a good resource, right? Because it's just didn't happen. So again, we're all born with some skills and ability, and that I think is part to your point of spirituality. I think part of that whole self-discovery and finding is for each of us to find that, right? So what are we really good at? What are some of those things that makes us good and special? And then try to find a career or find a path that follows that. And I think I believe that in the past, I think that was better. Like, meaning in previous generations, that was done a little better. And I feel like now everybody's sort of going through a given one single path. You got to do this and you got to do that. Whatever's the hottest job, you got to go to college. You got to do this. You got to do that. Not taking into consideration those skills or those innate abilities that we all have, right? And that's causing a lot of people that are just not to be happy in their job or not to be good at the job, right? And you can kind of see the difference, right? People that are actually born to do something, they're really good at it. I mean, people that are not. Now, for their listeners, there are people, Dolan, you happen to be someone that is just been blessed with many, many skills. I know you're a musician, so there are people in the world like you that it's just anything they touch is a good thing. They can pick it up and do it. But I do feel that people that have become really good at their job or really good at whatever craft they decide to do are people that mix those two things, right? Like whatever their innate abilities are with their passion and their goals. And when you have that connection, I think that amazing things happen. And we should do more of that. And as leaders, we should encourage and try to find where people shine and then try to guide them in that way.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I think that's to your point, there's the two sides to it, right? As a human, we have to, what we do as in our vocation, what our vocation is in our career is a significant portion of our life from a time commitment. Right? It's significant. And when we look at, the man-made constraint of 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right. So there has to, I agree with you. There has to be that connection on that side where when I'm done with my day and Linda asks me, my wife, Linda asks me, who just for the listeners who don't know who Linda is, you know who Linda is, but when Lynn asks me, how was your day? That I feel valued in my response.
Correct.
here's my, and I light up. And I light up enough sometimes that she goes, yeah, that's more than I wanted to do. I get the hand. Yeah. Okay.
That's enough. That's enough.
I'm good. You had me. It was great. So, but the other side though, one thing that you said that's really important, and I think leaders get hung up on this, Humphrey, and it is the fact that we lose track of the fact that there is that need for and a desire, innate desire, right, for recognition.
Yeah.
As humans, and it doesn't mean, pat me on the back, and it doesn't mean give me more money. It means I have to feel fulfilled.
Right.
And I think as leaders, it's easy to get caught up in the do of leading to get to an outcome.
Exactly.
Right. That we forget about that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And people bail out. If they don't have that connection, they pull the cord.
Yeah.
And they go someplace else. So there's two things that I'm having a hard time deciding which way I'm going to go after this. I'm going to go left, and then we'll go right. So we're in a zigzag.
That sounds good.
And you're a pro. You've done a million podcasts, so you know what happens. The first thing is you very briefly use the word AI, or the acronym AI.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm curious, because we're all in the midst of this. You and I have seen many technological leaps.
Yep.
Many. And AI is not a new topic. The AI is now a commoditized topic, so it gives it the feeling that it's new, right? We used to do wild, crazy stuff with data together. So AI is it's not that. But I'm really kind of curious about, your opinion and your thinking around the blending of purposeful AI and still the people component,
right?
Because I think there's a little bit AI can drive a loss in that connection.
It can actually, and it's interesting because we discussed something similar to this, right? When we had you in our podcast, you were a guest in our podcast, and we talked a little bit about AI and some of the concerns. And since then, I actually have narrowed down my thoughts on it more because I have more experience, and actually because since then AI has exploded. Has matured. I'm gonna call it as a technology. I've been working on it for the last for a few years, and I've seen it mature and how good it's gotten.
Right.
And I would describe it that there's two camps. There's the camp of things. Well, AI, it's amazing. You can give it any task and it will get it done. You can sort of technology in coding or just development. You can replace an entire development team with an set of AI agents, and you get the job done, right?
Sure.
And then there's the ones that are like, well, AI is going to take over the world and it's going to control us all and it's going to take out and so forth.
There is that. Yeah.
So I, because mostly we work in technology, I think the first case, which is AI can make the whole team very efficient and it can do a lot of work. That's the train that's left the station and it's going to keep moving, right? Like that is happening. And my own experience is it is like having a team of developers at your disposal. It isn't that good. That said, I tell people, it's like, if you remember back in the early 2000s when we were outsourcing a lot of development work, at the time, outsourcing was the biggest thing because it was cheaper than local development and everything else.
Yeah.
But the problem at that time, it was the communication problem. It was the requirements were getting lost in translation, right? It was like, oh, you were getting cheaper work, but you were not getting exactly the outcome you're looking for.
Yeah.
What I'm finding with AI is exactly this. Interesting enough, is exactly the same issue, right? It's like, yes, it can work better than a whole technical team, but you're losing that contextual knowledge, right? That contextual kind of connecting the dots across the board, not just the technology, but how does this connect in the bigger impact of the business, right? And how is it going to impact everything else? So where I think people are going to, or organizations that are going to win with AI, leveraging AI, are going to be the ones that are going to have smart people that are leaders that understand the context and the entire technology and understand how to do the translation of those requirements and get those impacts correctly. But I see it as a sign, but I see it as a combination of work. I do feel like it's not going to take over everything. It's going to be, you're going to need that layer of humans to kind of have that imagination and intelligence. And to this day, and people may not agree with me, but I contend the one thing AI just can't do is cannot think outside the box. And that's where humans do shine. What I mean by that is you can be presented with a problem and you can kind of think about the connection and be like, we could do it, this way, which might not be a logical answer, but it might be the right answer, right? I think that's where AI, it's sort of, I call it hitting the walls. So I do see it in the future as that, even in our current organization, that's where we're getting the value. We're getting some people, very smart people that have that view, that can use it and leverage the technology in the speed, because that is the key thing, is the speed of the technology. Yeah. But you still need someone to have the big picture and understand the connections and the impacts of some of those decisions, some of the things that are made. So I see it as a collaboration going forward.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting perspective because we do know that AI, from a velocity perspective, AI can do many things. Many things. It's the keeper of what it perceives knowledge is.
Right.
What it perceives sometimes.
Yep.
So, but,
yeah,
there are moments I read stuff back from AI, a particular prompt that I create and go, well, that's not. I appreciate that.
I appreciate it, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Thank you for the effort, but let's go back to reality. Right. But it's interesting. There's a couple things that you were talking about there, and I think a couple of words that are really, really important, and particularly from a leader's perspective, right? Leaders cause movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the job of the leader, is to create change. We create friction. That's what we do, right? And how we manage that, how we lead that is, how we measure our success, I suppose. But there's a couple of things that you said through there, Humphrey, and I think it's important for those that are listening to the podcast, and were two words. One was context,
mm-hmm.
the context behind it, and the second was imagination.
Yes.
So I am, and you kind of link that to that inquisitive nature of, what if we didn't do that? What if we went that way? So I think, how do you, when you are, and this is, we'll kind of start drifting to the right on that other question I was going to ask you about. But so how do you, I think I'll give you a little preamble. I think with AI, one of the risks in AI is that it's treated as authoritative. That the answer I got is always right. And if AI says go do this, I'm going to go do this, right?
Right.
When it could be dead wrong. It can accelerate your way to failure sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you are in the midst of your in your new role, you're very heavily AI bound in that role.
Yes.
So how do you encourage maintaining the imagination so that it's looked at with that imaginative eye, and then used as a tool in that process, not the deciding factor in that process?
So I think the key there is it's we call it the human in the loop. Having the right human in the loop is the key difference. That's what I believe is going to make the difference. That's how we're using it. It's having the right resource in front of the AI, right? Kind of acting as that sort of middle tier,
right?
Of, here are the requirements, here's the goal, this is what we're trying to do, and having the right person in that role that can actually channel the right, turn that into the right prompts, turn it into what needs to happen, and then take, as you said, the outcome that comes from AI, and have that critical thinking of, is this actually what we need, and is this really connecting to the requirements that we had, or is this something that the AI just decided to go rogue and do, and I'm going to take it? So I think having the right humans in the loop, it's important. Now, this is where from my role, I see the risk is because of AI and because of how good it is. I see a lot of entry-level jobs, especially in technology, that will go away. Mm-hmm. And I think to have that right human in the loop, you do need that experience. And those new, say, graduates and people are not getting that experience that they will need to be able to leverage. So my concern is getting to a point where people just, the AI said it, so this is the right solution, and keep going, which is going to lead us, and that's when you end up with wrong outcomes and the wrong things. So I see that's my risk. My risk is like it's hard to keep getting those people. That said, on the other side, the imagination part, I find that young people in particular are way more open-minded and imaginative into how to connect the dots, right? It's like, they can, it's almost like they can see, right, how you can think outside the box and come up with creative solutions to feed the AI, which is exciting, right? So that part is exciting. So I think a combination of having somebody with experience with somebody young that knows how to do that, I think is a winning ticket in an organization. But I do see it as a risk. I do think not having those experience tracks that we used to have, it might come back to bite us down the line.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I've seen lately in some of the articles and sources that I follow and read, and that's one of those companies are going back to bring in entry-level people because, to your point, it's hard to create an extremely knowledgeable person if they haven't done it, right?
Yeah.
Goes, you can't be a good chef unless you've washed dishes. So
I know, like, you and I used to trade stories of experiences that you have when you're young, when you're starting out, and things that you do. Like, that's how you learn. I shouldn't pull the network. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't run that SQL. In my case, I shouldn't run that SQL query without testing it before deleting all the transactions, right? So there are things that you learn through experience.
Yeah. Oops! I just blew up 1,000 computers. Anyway, another day. The next version number 3, episode 200. We'll do that one.
There you go.
We get into all the shit we blew up in our career.
There you go.
But no, it's funny you mentioned that. So one of the things that I think that's, and I think that's part of the art and nuance, I think, of leaders. To your point, and I love you classifying that as a risk, because it's a consideration.
Right.
It has to be a consideration, and how you balance that in having people in the right roles and people willing to do that. Also appreciate, your comment around kind of we'll call them the younger people. I've got you by many years myself, but you're a younger people to me. But that ability to connect the dots differently, and I think sometimes one of the benefits to that leaders forget about is the generation in the workforce today. This emerging generation, Gen Z, X, whatever we want to call them. I just call them kids. But as they're in the workforce, they come from an era of technology as an appliance,
right?
Yeah. Rather than coming from an era of, not to sound like an old guy, but 73, I can pretend I'm an old guy, but coming from that era of of seeing the emergence of technology, seeing faxes and seeing pagers and seeing all of the changes that we've seen. And to move it to a mindset of appliance, AI becomes, this is just another thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly how it's treated, right?
And you probably see that with your kids, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to, we're as we arc towards the ungraceful exit of the podcast. But one thing I do want to talk about in your new role that we were kind of hinting around with before we hit go and record was, So you're now in a role and gracefully with a great guy with Ferris, and I'll give Ferris shameless plug. Ferris Rafah, give him a shameless plug. But in the new role, you said something that I don't want to lose track of, which is you're in the body of an entrepreneurial organization.
Yes.
Who's subservient to a big machine, the division of a big machine.
Yeah.
Right? Which means there's a precarious balance between velocity and potential stodginess, right? These people at the top who go, well, we've never done it that way.
Yeah.
How are you? First of all, how's that going? And then second is, and I know it's going great because we don't want to say it's not, but I'm curious about how you maintain that balance with keeping an entrepreneurial spirit and keeping at velocity, yet while balancing confidence and trust inside of that larger machine.
Right. Interesting enough, the spiritual discussion we had earlier has helped me personally a lot in that scenario in particular, because it's more of we're all, at the end of the day, we're all human. We might be in an organization, right? And we're working in, as you said, we're two organizations or in one big machine. But at the end of the day, you work with humans, you work with other people. Right? So understanding what I find now is that sometimes that grind that you find when you're an entrepreneur and trying to move fast and big organizations move slow, it's more of either fear of I don't understand what's new, and as you said, it's always been this way, so why are you trying to change things? And I'm afraid of the change. So there's always something behind. It's not necessarily that they're trying to be slow or trying to do that. There's something behind. So once you discover that, so finding through that spiritual work, just working, building relationships and talking and understanding what's important for them, or, what are the measure, and then trying to sort of get to a win-win, right? So like, look, let me take that fear away for you. Let me see how this is going to help you as well. So through that interaction, we're finding that people will help and will move, right? And then it's like anything else. So we talked this in the first podcast. Mm-hmm. Once you build trust with them, then it becomes a lot easier, right? So once they trust you, you got to go, you show them a win, you show them that you're not trying to either take their jobs or, do something to harm their world. Right. It becomes a lot faster, but it is, again, I use the spirituality because in my previous career in my younger years, I don't think I would have had the patience to see it from that perspective, right? I would just go and, oh my God, they don't want to help, or they're blocking our progress. So now I kind of, you find tactics but I do feel understanding, because at the end of the day, you're just dealing with other person. So understanding where they're coming from. And a lot of cases, it turns out to be fear. Like, we don't understand what the change is, right? Or we don't understand why you're trying to change, or why people are comfortable in what they're doing, so they don't want to change. So that's what so I find that, but, sometimes, good old push through, just push through and make it happen. Sometimes that works.
I think it's it, and that's really important, because I think as a leader, right, and you're leading in those moments, right, where you're leading up, down, sideways, around, right, because you've got a leader in your organization who is a driver in and unto himself. I'll say that, but I won't mention Ferris's name. But so we have a driver who is looking to do that. So there is an outcome that you still have to get to.
Correct.
And the nature of that precarious balance, and I love your point, Humphrey, around that it does come down to trust, and a lot of times in fear, and fear is a lot of people aren't willing to step through that door. They're just not willing to do it. So understanding that.
Sometimes you gotta, but as a leader, understanding, identifying those things, I think it's important. Though, and when we do, then you make the decision: is it something that I need to work through, or I need to go around, or I need to go through? What am I gonna have to get through? How do I get to my outcome? But it turns out I'm finding 9 out of 10, it turns out to a simple conversation and an explanation opens way many doors than just trying to hammer it through.
Yeah.
It just hammer it through.
That is so cool. That's so true. It just is. Yeah. It does come down to simple things. It just comes down to remembering we're humans, right, and connecting at that level. And it doesn't mean we have to all be in agreement, but there's a committed decision to go do it. So
exactly. Now I tell you, talking to her, mixing the two avenues we took, experience has a lot to do with it, right? So sometimes you go, like, hey, how long, we need to do the simple integration between two systems, right? It's the API call. And from a slow moving organization, they'll come back with a crazy scope of work. Like, oh yeah, it's going to take, 6 months. So having the experience of like, no, that doesn't take that long. No. That doesn't take that. Show me why it will take this long. You tell me understand that. Helps. Whereas I think, again, that only comes with the experience of no, sure, that doesn't take that long. Show me why it would take that long.
I love that. That's where imagination comes back. Imagine we could do this sooner.
I know. Imagine we could do it in less time.
Imagine that work. Good. Let's look at the possibility of moving this forward in my life, somewhere in my life. Oh my God. Well, I want to, first of all, I've really enjoyed this.
Me too, Martha. Me too.
And we've had a chance to get into conversations. I don't know that we've ever had that conversation about your background and your spirituality and upbringing.
No, we haven't.
And the why. So we after, we won't say how long, but after all, we've known each other for a minute, to get a chance to go explore that. So I want to just end this podcast with just another round of gratitude. I think leaders, as you go back and listen to this, listen carefully to what Humphrey has been talking about, because there are many threads that tie together value that will help you become a better leader. And we all learn from each other through the things that we do. I learn every day. So and sometimes I'm reminded by other people what I need to learn. But again, I won't mention, I'll leave Linda out of the conversation. So on that note, just thank you. And I know we're into your evening where you are in Ireland. So thank you for taking time to be here with me and come hang out. And so good to see you.
Good to see you too. And thank you. My gratitude to you for, number one, giving me the chance in your 14th episode to come in, and now to bringing me back and getting me into the journey. I honestly, of all the many things that I have to be grateful, but thank you. Thank you. I always love spending time with you, my friend.
No, great to have you. So listeners, we'll end the podcast with the same two things that we always talk about. The very first thing is go back and listen to the episode or read the transcript or look at the highlights, and in the show notes, there'll be key moments of topics from Humphrey. But when you do that, do it with a pencil and paper in hand. And the reason why I suggest that is it moves you from the mentality of entertainment to action, and shift your thinking from not what did I hear that was cool, not what did I hear that was kind of interesting, but what did I hear that I can do something with today and go try. So shift your stance from entertainment to action. And then if you know a leader who can learn something, or someone on your team or in your family that can learn something from what we talked about today, share the episode with them. We're all on a path. My personal path is to empower 1 million leaders. I had somebody the other day, Humphrey, tell me that was not enough. So I'm contemplating moving to 1 billion, but I'm having a hard time with the number. But we're on that path. And the way we do that is we do it together. It can't just be me. It's not just Humphrey. It's how we collaborate together and help each other be good. So do that. Give the podcast a know, like, share, follow. Helps elevate it. It's not a vanity number, makes it more visible. Speaking of algorithms and AI, and we'll do that. And I'm Dolan. I'm the host. Next Interview Show podcast. I'm here every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. sharp with an episode. You'll see Humphrey's episode here very soon. So thanks for being with me. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this week's The Next Interview Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then take time to turn what you heard here into action.